Gaming consoles are dying. I know it may sound controversial to say that, considering how successful the Nintendo Switch 2 release was, and the fact that the PlayStation 5 generation is, according to Sony, the most profitable generation they've ever had. But is the console market sustainable? Can consoles be the solid foundation for the future of gaming? Or is it just a piece of hardware that will turn obsolete in the next few years? While it's true that some consoles are truly popular, the recent announcements from Microsoft and Valve are a sign of something entirely different, moving part of the industry away from what once made consoles a great option for gamers in the first place. Nowadays, I'm predominantly a PC gamer, so it's very easy for me to say that PC is better than consoles because I can have better hardware and personalize my experience if I want to, yada yada yada. But the existence of consoles in the market was always a good thing for gaming in general. Historically, they were low-cost hardware, very simple to use and to understand, since they are essentially plug-and-play systems with almost no configuration requirements. They usually have pretty long hardware cycles, which helps stabilize development costs. And they always had a strong identity. Until very recently, different consoles were known for having different gaming ecosystems, with their own exclusive titles appealing to different audiences in different ways. These identities were partially responsible for building what we understand as gaming culture, creating a real emotional connection between companies and players. The reason why I, for instance, have a PS5, even as a PC gamer, is because of how important some of Sony's exclusive games are to me. Jak and Daxter is still one of my favorite franchises, and so is Uncharted. Of course, we can argue that accessibility is a good thing, and making games available on every platform can make them more profitable since more people will be able to buy them. But it's also true that it compromises the brand identity of the consoles. After all, if we can play games anywhere, then the hardware I use to play them doesn't really matter. It's not a coincidence that Nintendo is the most successful company when it comes to selling consoles, and also the company that has what's probably the most profitable library of exclusive first-party IPs in the world. And that's exactly what consoles used to be, the most accessible way to play games. Maybe not every game, but the games we like the most, being part of a community of players that care about the same games, building friendships and memories while playing our favorite titles. However, things have changed considerably over the past few years. What once was an affordable way to have gaming hardware became more and more expensive, as manufacturing costs skyrocketed over time, which makes the profit margins for consoles like the PlayStation 5 almost non-existent. The profitability from this PlayStation generation is not related to console sales, but to everything associated with the platform. As far as I know, Nintendo is the only company still capable of building affordable hardware that generates real profit. The AAA industry made things even harder for consoles since the development cost of their titles also increased drastically. In the current state of the industry, it's perfectly normal for studios to have production budgets of over $100 million for their games. Platform exclusives naturally become a massive risk, since exclusivity deals are less and less likely to recover development costs alone. Studios necessarily need to multi-platform releases to survive. With overblown budgets, it's much easier for games to have underwhelming sales numbers if they are only available on one single platform. Now, evidently, spending more than $100 million to develop a game with no guarantee of success is an incredibly dumb idea and one of the biggest problems in the AAA industry nowadays. But that's a subject for another video. Beyond all that, console manufacturers themselves are realizing that they don't have to be hardware companies anymore. Microsoft has spent the past 6 to 7 years growing a service-based ecosystem centered on Game Pass. And that, of course, was going much better before the ridiculously high price increase the Game Pass had recently. Dodging the so-called console war as much as possible, Sony, besides having their own gaming service, decided to release some of their most popular exclusive titles for PC, adopting the idea of temporary exclusives for their console. Even Nintendo, the company with the most profitable gaming hardware in the world, decided to make changes to the accessibility of their titles by creating a subscription for Nintendo Switch Online in 2018, connecting their players to a service. The focus of these companies shifted over time, and to be honest, nothing indicates that heavily investing in new and more advanced hardware will necessarily pay off when compared to what services can potentially actually provide. And as the games become more accessible and independent from specific platforms, the need for a specific console to play your games only decreases. And this is why the return of the Steam machine and the news about the next-gen Xbox are very interesting. Since the traditional way of building gaming consoles is no longer making sense for most companies, the strategy of expanding the hardware structure to a PC console hybrid seems to be the plan. Valve did try to release their first iteration of the Steam machine in 2015, but to be honest, the market wasn't ready. The need for console alternatives didn't really exist at the time, and people playing on PC could already take advantage of Steam as a system. But now, considering how successful the Steam Deck is and the direction the gaming industry is taking, a Steam-branded living room device might make sense. But it's still risky. The Steam Deck is a portable device. It's a handheld, offering an entirely different experience for PC players. It's a product that makes sense since it targets a different market need when compared to a PC or a console. But the Steam machine doesn't really do that. Meanwhile, Microsoft is making a similar bet. The ROG Xbox Ally already implements the idea of being more a computer than a portable console, and allegedly the next-gen Xbox console will also not be a console. It will use PC-like architecture, Windows is probably going to be the operational system. It will basically be a PC with a console user experience. The thing is, if the idea behind the console is to become a simplified PC focused on gaming, the identity of the product changes almost entirely. The traditional idea of a console is replaced by a refined hardware experience, with obviously a much higher price tag. For a company like Microsoft, in particular for the Xbox division, it makes sense to risk doing something different and change their approach when it comes to hardware, since their console sales are not exactly high, let's be honest. But only time will tell if their investment will pay off. Honestly, in my opinion, it's kinda too risky. Very few companies can escape the console death spiral. As hardware gets more expensive, prices go up, consumers hesitate on what they should spend their money on, game budgets don't shrink, since every game needs to be bigger and better than the previous one, studios and platform holders need higher sales to break even, games naturally go multi-platform as exclusivity becomes an impossibility, and the console loses its reason to exist as it is. Obviously, this does not mean that consoles will simply disappear tomorrow, but it does erode their purpose. That's precisely the reason why a company like Nintendo is successful. Their secret weapon is not their console or even any particular game, but their identity. Their consoles are much cheaper to build, they're portable, they're powered by exclusive first-party content, and they provide a unique experience to players. Because of that, Nintendo has a massive audience without chasing high-end specs. They avoid the death spiral completely. But the fact is, console gaming as we know it will probably cease to exist for the most part. PC and PC console hybrids, game streaming services or cloud-assisted local gaming, or even universal gaming ecosystems allowing players to access their games from multiple different devices like PC, handheld, TV, or the cloud will probably replace traditional consoles almost entirely. Now, none of that is necessarily a bad thing, obviously. We'll still have affordable and simple gaming experiences, even if they're different from what we had in the past. New devices and technologies will always be relevant in the gaming industry, so changes are inevitable. At the end of the day, companies will adapt as much as they need to create profitable products, and there's nothing more profitable than creating the best possible product for their audiences. Hopefully, we will be able to eventually look back and see these changes in the industry as an evolution into something better for players and gamers all around the world. At least that's what I hope for. But anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you guys later.